Vamp, Chapter 10. We finished out the rest of the trip without any incidents or dramatic rescues. In fact, the guys never had it easier, and I got to have a little fun with my speed and strength while being my vampire self. I even had the courage to pull out one of my pop bottles of blood and drink it at dinner with them one night. They were all pleased to know it was from a bear, though they said it didn't really matter. The deck of the ship was never more organized and clean. There was one day Ryan bet me I couldn't do everything on my own. They laid out on the deck and suntanned with beer while I worked, which I actually really enjoyed. And because of my insane strength, we ended up being able to relax one full day while we were headed back into the harbor. And Thursday afternoon we pulled into the harbor and finished our work. The rest of the crew went back to their lives. James's wife, Allie, and his kids were waiting for him on the dock. I watched his kids bouncing up and down from excitement, screaming, "Daddy's home! Daddy's home!" 0 regrets, I thought, when I watched him embrace his family. 10 out of 10 would do again. We walked quietly back to Aden's house. "Come on," he said, grabbing my hand. "I'll give you the grand tour." "It's a cozy little house," I said after we sat down in the living room after the tour. It had 2 bedrooms, a nice open kitchen with a dining room. There was a small living room downstairs with stairs that led to the upper floor. There was a half bathroom right off the kitchen and a living room with a large TV mounted on the wall above a fireplace. There was a full bathroom upstairs in between the 2 bedrooms. When we got to the bedroom, there was a little bit of an awkward moment. The bed was really high with a gorgeous wood headboard. It had a blue down comforter and lots of pillows. I wanted to flop down on it and relax forever. "You want to watch some TV?" he asked. I nodded and sat down on his oversized couch. He turned it on and started flipping through channels. He stopped on an old episode of I Love Lucy that was playing, and we watched that. "I met her once," I said. By now he had his arm around me, and I was laying on his chest listening to his heartbeat. I found the strong pulses to be quite comforting. "Oh yeah? When?" "I was at one of her shows in 1956. If you were in the audience, you got to meet them afterwards. She was really nice. They all were. Vivian and William couldn't stand each other, though." I laughed. "That's pretty entertaining," Aden said while he stroked my hair. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course you can." He rolled to his side and looked at me. I grunted and put his hand back on my head, and he laughed and continued rubbing. "Do you ever wonder about your family? Do you ever wonder what happened to them?" "I think about it all the time. Most of it I know, though. I have well-paid spies who are extremely discreet. My mother never remarried, and she died with my cousin by her side. My cousin went on to be one of the first women to have a job dealing in finance and banking. She married when she was 26, but as far as I know, she never had children. You really missed out on a lot. I don't think it's fair. Why don't you look for her? She hasn't passed away, has she? I mean, you would have heard from your detective person, right?" he asked. I let the trail go cold in the 90s. I don't like to know too many details unless I have to. It's for her safety and mine. "What do you mean about your safety?" "Well, I snuck out of Romania. If my creator ever found me, well, that's why I move every year. I don't want to put down any permanent roots." "So you're just going to be gone in a year? Will you even give me any notice?" he said, sitting up and looking down at me. He was getting angry, I could tell. I didn't need to drink his blood to know that. "I don't know what I'm going to do this time. I don't want to leave. This is why I generally never allow myself to get attached to anyone." "All right. I guess we can just take it one day at a time," Aden said as he let out a sigh and laid against the pillows again. We just laid there watching old black and white TV shows until he fell asleep. Once I knew he was fast asleep, I got up and put on my coat and boots. I needed a drink. And with the woods only a block away, I figured I could find some animal to quench my thirst. I thought about writing a note, but decided he probably wouldn't wake up anyway, so I just headed outside. The night air was crisp. I knew it would be snowing soon. Christmas was right around the corner, and I was excited about it. Christmas has always been my favorite holiday. Something about all the lights and music and giving that just made everything seem so happy and wonderful. I realized then I was going to have to find a Christmas tree for my living room, for the windows overlooking the water. That would look beautiful, I thought. Just before I entered the woods, I heard something behind me and whipped around. Nothing was there. I thought maybe it was just a stray cat, but something in my gut told me differently. I waited for a minute to see if anything came poking around a corner of a house or garage, but nothing appeared, so I turned and headed back into the woods. It didn't take me long to sniff out a deer. I quietly followed my prey until it was in a small clearing eating some grass. I was crouched down on my hands and feet, walking up to the deer and keeping a good eye out for sticks and leaves so that I wouldn't crunch or crack anything. Once I was within pouncing distance of my prey, I struck without hesitation. Within a second, I was in the air like a cheetah when it attacks, and my teeth sank right into the neck of the deer. It didn't even see me coming. Animal blood tastes different from humans, just as humans taste different from other humans. I prefer buck blood over doe blood. The buck I happened to take down tonight had a very nice rack on it, one any hunter would have been proud of spotting in their scope and planting their 30-06 bullets into. While I was dining, I heard something again. I stopped and stayed close to the ground. When I didn't see any grass moving, I quietly stood. I wiped my mouth with the backside of my right hand and reached for the knife I always keep strapped to my right calf. It was a black 6-inch switchblade I bought off eBay about 10 years ago. I had my ears and eyes open, but it was that sixth sense everyone has that saved my ass. I could feel someone behind me, approaching me, and I turned around just at the right time to see Domenico, one of my creator's hunters and my former clan member, coming right at me with his sword drawn. I jumped straight into the air over his head. I turned around in midair so that I could come down facing his back. Before my feet even hit the ground, I started running. I came up behind him and planted my blade in the side of his right ribs. There was a short scream, and then he turned around and scratched his nails across my face. We both took a step back and faced each other. Don't fight like a girl, Domenico. Grow some balls and attack me like a man. I touched the fresh scratches on my face. This coming from the bitch that just attacked me from behind, said Domenico. He was spitting up some blood. Not as much as I'd hoped, but enough to slow him down just a little. Some call it strategy. I smiled, showing my blood-covered teeth. Why would Vladimir send you? He knows how strong and fast I am. He trained me himself. He was hoping you got rusty. By the way, that's a very handsome man you found yourself. You know A positive was always my favorite blood type, Domenico said with an evil smile and licking the blood from my face off his fingertips. I could feel anger raging through me now. The protectiveness and territorial instincts started boiling up to the surface. I swear to God, if you lay one hand on him, You'll what, Gretchen? Kill me? I'm shaking in my shoes right now, he said mockingly. Face it, Gretchen. You made it difficult to follow you, but you had a small rat issue in New England. I took care of him for you. And I'll be heading down to Florida shortly. Mason seems like a very handy man to know. He was taunting me by disclosing intel only I would know. Enough talking, Domenico. Let's just do what you came here to do, I snarled. It was bad enough I was going to have to find another go-man, as Domenico had sent one of mine to an early grave. Good luck, Gretchen. I was always fond of you, but I'm excited to see what Vladimir has planned for you. With one swift movement, I was in the air, flying feet first towards Domenico. My right foot cracked him right in the sternum. I felt a bone break underneath my boot. I was almost positive that a small piece of the bone was stabbing him in the heart, and almost instantly he was coughing up blood. Before I could make my next move, he reached out with his left leg and kicked me in the knee. It broke instantly, and I was down on the ground. I crawled over to my knife and picked it up. I pushed through the pain and stood. Domenico was already up on his feet, and we both took a crouched position and started moving in a circle, waiting to see who was going to make the first move. Domenico took the first move and ran straight at me with a hand out in front of him, reaching for my neck, and his other holding his sword, ready to slice down between my neck and shoulder. I moved to the right just in time and reached out with my knife and sliced him in his left side. He rolled to the ground, grabbing his side. I took my opportunity and hopped onto his back. I tried to get a good grip on his head, but he rolled over, and the struggle for ultimate domination was now on. I was not going back, and if I was, it was going to be dead. We rolled around in the grass and mud for minutes, each of us struggling and maneuvering out of each other's grasp. Domenico punched me full force in the face, breaking my nose and sending me back into a tree. I had mere seconds to steady myself before he lunged at me. I made a split-second decision to jump and grab a branch above him, allowing me to kick him in his gut as he ran towards me. He flew backwards towards the empty clearing and made a loud boom when he landed on his back. I was already there by the time he came to, and I managed to flip him to his stomach and use my knees to push his chest into the ground. I dug my fingernails into the skin on his head and neck. He screamed and kicked his feet in agony as blood poured down his face. "It burns! You're melting my face!" he screamed in agony. I dug my fingers in deeper, past the bone, liquefying the skin around my fingertips. "Why is Vladimir looking for me?" I demanded. "Why do you think? You escaped. You're his wife, after all." "I am not his wife," I said in a low and serious growl. "I want nothing to do with him or his life. Unfortunately, the messenger is now going to become the message." I pulled back on Domenico's face. He screamed in absolute agony as I bent his neck completely backwards. There was a snap and a pop, followed by silence. I had snapped Domenico's neck. He was still blinking, but he couldn't talk because his vocal cords had been crushed. I had to work quickly, for a broken neck can heal eventually. I stood and walked over to Domenico's sword that was by the tree. Domenico's eyes were still blinking, his body still in that prone position with his head inhumanly rolled back 180 degrees. He was looking around for me. His hands and feet were twitching. Even in his broken state, he still wanted to fight. How admirable. I stood above Domenico and locked eyes with him. His mouth made an effort to scream, but nothing came out. Silently, I twirled his sword around for a second, and then with one swift movement, I brought it down right on Domenico's neck. It quickly detached his head from his body. Even the animals were silent. I watched the blood from his body seep into the grass and mud. A few minutes later, Domenico was completely drained of his blood. I wasn't kidding when I said I wanted to send Vladimir a message, and he was going to get one all right. After my work was done, I looked down at myself. I was a mess. Blood everywhere. My knee was healing slowly, but you could tell it was still broken. The fingernail marks had stopped bleeding, but they were still raw and sore to the touch. I buried Domenico's body and his severed head deep enough so no other animal or human would find it, at least in the meantime. I'd come back to it when I had a chance to finish my plan, but right now I wanted to get back to Aden's in case he had woken up. I was mentally kicking myself in the ass for not leaving him a note after all. As I limped back to Aden's house, I thought about my fight with Domenico. I was surprised to see him. He wasn't the strongest fighter in Vladimir's clan. I also thought about the repercussions of my actions when Domenico's wife Candida eventually finds out. She's always hated me, and this would just add more fuel to the fire. I mentally kicked myself because now she would be looking for me for retaliation. I am a terrific fighter, though. Vladimir taught me himself, and he's the best I've ever met. I remember spending hours in rooms of the castle, learning different fighting styles and techniques. My favorite weapons are swords and throwing knives, and I can hit any target you give me. I can fight with almost any weapon that's put into my hands, or just my hands themselves. Vladimir taught me to be tough. I don't think he ever thought my training would be used against him, only with him. We would spend days beating each other up until I finally learned how to master each weapon he gave me. If anyone from any outsider's point of view saw what we were doing to each other, they wouldn't even have the slightest idea what to think. Vladimir didn't just train me to fight. He taught me how to survive in my new body and use my new skills. He spent months with me, showing me how to control my strength and how to use it when I would need to. He taught me everything he knew about feeding and killing swiftly and quietly. Learning how to use my speed was the most fun, though. I was always fast, even faster than Vladimir himself, which surprised and worried him at the same time. We would run up and down walls and corridors just to practice. The most important thing he taught me was how to control my thirst. It's painful when a vampire becomes thirsty. Your whole mouth feels like you just drank the spiciest hot sauce in the world. Your mouth starts to burn, and it slowly moves down your throat and throughout the rest of your body. Eventually, it will drive you mad and kill you if you don't get blood. Vladimir started me out slow. A few hours without blood, then half a day, then a whole day, then 2 days a week, and so on, until I learned how. to control my urge and my actions for it. Your actions when you're thirsty are the most important thing. If you don't keep yourself focused, you can get sloppy, and you'll suck too much out and drain a person dry. As I headed around the corner for Aden's house, all I could do was hope that he was still sleeping when I got back and I could get into the shower before he saw anything. Luck was obviously not on my side tonight, because when I walked into Aden's house, I heard him walking around upstairs. I closed the door loud enough for him to hear. No use trying to sneak in now. He already knows I'm not here, I thought. Gretchen, where have you been? Aden stopped short when he saw me. What the hell happened to you? I was hunting, I said, shrugging and smiling while trying to play it off. What were you hunting? You have fingernail marks all down your face, and your leg is bleeding, and bent in half, and you're covered in blood. All right, I said, and sat down at the kitchen table. I really did go out hunting. I was thirsty, and I knew I could find a deer or a bear or something to drink from. So I headed into the woods. On my way, I thought I heard something behind me, but I ignored it. After I drank my dinner, I heard a noise again, and it turned out to be Domenico, an old clan member. He was sent to bring me back to my maker, but he found out about you and said he was going to kill you and then take me back to Romania. So we fought each other and I killed him, I said, never breaking eye contact with Aden. Who is your maker? Aden asked, sounding a little less aggravated. Vladimir. He went by Vlad. Vlad. Like, the guy from Transylvania who impaled people and drank their blood? Aden said as he took a seat at the table. He never drank their blood, he dipped bread in it. I rolled my eyes. But yes, him, I said as I looked down and picked some blood out of my fingernails. Well, that's just peachy, said Aden, waving his hand in the air. And he still lives in Romania. Yep, he's there. His castle is in old Transylvania. Look, I need to shower and rest so my wounds heal. Do you mind if we talk about this after I shower? Aden rolled his eyes and said, Fine, we'll add it to the growing list of everything else we need to talk about one day down the road. Then walked to the fridge and got a beer. I went upstairs and turned the shower on. I checked my face in the mirror and noticed that my scratches were scabbing over. I splashed some water on my face to get rid of the dried blood. I was starting to take off my clothes when Aden gently knocked on the door and slightly opened it. Can I help you? I asked. Well, I came in here to apologize for being snarky, but now I have other things on my mind, he said with a sly smile. Very funny. You still gonna feel that way after I put my knee back in its socket? And with that, I put my leg up on the toilet, cut my hands around my kneecap, and started moving it around. You could hear all the crackling and twisting. Finally, it popped, and I felt the muscles starting to mend. I looked up at Aden, who was a little peaked. You all right? I'm okay. You're pretty good at that. Well, I did go to school to be a doctor. You forgot to mention that one earlier, he said, folding his arms over his chest. Sorry, but it wouldn't have made sense. And you would have wondered how that was even possible. Can you ever forgive me? I said, giving him a smile while turning my back to him and unhooking my bra. I think I can do that, he said. He found my neck with his mouth. I softly pushed him away and said, Aden, I actually need to get clean. But I kinda like you dirty, he joked and kissed my neck. I'll be waiting in the bedroom. I smiled and watched him as he shut the door behind him. I climbed into the shower and cleaned up. When I was done, I got out and dried off. I walked into his bedroom with my towel on, and a small smile crept up on his lips. You can go in my closet and find a shirt, and there are shorts in the top dresser drawer, he said. I went into Aden's closet, found a nice big t-shirt and a pair of boxers, and put them on. When I walked out, Aden was already lying in bed. Now that's sexier than any lingerie I've ever seen. I crawled into bed next to him and laid my head on his chest. I have to admit, it's a little weird that you have to protect me, said Aden, when I was the one that wanted to protect you so much from the beginning. Yeah, it's a little backwards, but I don't see anything wrong with it, I said as I snuggled up next to him and laid my arm over his abdomen. I don't want anything to ever happen to you. I feel like I could be with you forever, Aden said, kissing my forehead. You have no idea what forever is really like. And with that, the conversation ended, and we laid there in silence watching TV. I rested with my eyes closed. I had many things running through my mind. Tomorrow I would have to go back out to the field and finish my work there. But as for right now, I was calm and happy to be with someone. The next morning, while Aden made us some breakfast, I let him know I was going out to the woods. I stopped by a dumpster filled with cardboard and found a box in very good shape. I walked out to the woods with my box to the spot where I had buried Domenico and his head. Once I found the spot, I dug up his head and put it in the box, along with a note I had written. I had brought tape and a marker from Aden's house and taped the box shut. I wrote an address on top of the box. I was mailing it to one of my contacts. I wasn't going to risk mailing this to Vladimir with the Alaska postmark on it. I took out my cell phone and called my contact in South America. I let him know I was mailing him this package, and when he received it, to rip off all the addresses and postmarkings, put it in another box, and mail it to the address I gave him over the phone. He didn't hesitate or ask questions. I ran to the post office and paid for the shipping. On the way back to Aden's, I had this sense of accomplishment. Vladimir would get my message all right. I couldn't help but hope that this would be the end of everything. However, there was a nagging in the pit of my stomach that told me this was only the beginning.